Welcome back to Lean Into Leadership, where we lead the conversation about anything and everything leadership related. On today's episode, Marlee Remenap joins the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to Leadership in 20. Brandon Skiles here today. Today I'm joined by...
Mello here today.
And Marlee, my first time.
Your first time. We're excited to have you. Thanks for being here. We're going to jump into your kind of leadership story and what that means to you. We have some questions prepared for you. But yeah, we're just going to free flow like we usually do. It's going to be a great time. So I think Mello's got the first question prepared as usual for you.
Okay, Marlee. So, who are you?
That is an insane question to start the podcast. I feel like I can do 20 minutes of who am I. I'm Marlee. I'm from Grand Rapids. I've always been a leader, I feel like, since I was young. I didn't even think that I never knew that I was a leader. I just always knew that I loved people. I love to be around people and serving people around me. So I think that kind of transitioned into my leadership style. In high school, I was super involved, applied for LAS, got into LAS, and then came to CMU with aspirations to take a break and kind of step away from leadership after experiencing some burnout in high school. And then I got involved with the Leadership Institute, and it's pretty impossible to not want to get more involved after being involved there. So I continued leading. I did Leadership Safari. I do the social media for the Leadership Institute. I'm the president and founder, actually, of Beyond Body. It's a disorder eating awareness group and body neutrality group for CMU students. And I'm also the president of my sorority. So pretty involved on campus here. I'm a Kids Hope mentor, some tiny things here and there. But yeah, that's who I am.
Lots of involvement. That's amazing. I love how you said it's hard not to get involved once you get involved.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's so big, and especially for maybe some students or folks maybe coming into a college, wherever that may be, or just in life in general. Once you, it's easy once you get started, right? But that's sometimes the hardest part of getting going and then finding that support system and community. So yeah,
I agree, and I think since coming to CMU, I've had such great mentors and such a great community to understand that burnout and leadership go hand in hand, but they also don't, and there's ways to avoid it. There's ways to set boundaries. There's ways to take care of yourself on campus as well as lead. So I found that balance here at CMU.
Yeah, I think college really kind of helps you find that balance, because I can relate with it's kind of like an avalanche. Once you push that snow, then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And you might sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to be a part of this. And then here you are running it. And it's just I've always dealt with that as well, so.
I can't help it.
No, you can't help it. It's just you just want to do stuff, You just want to do stuff and be a part of something and make an impact and also have fun, and put a smile on people's face as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
So question 2 is express how you lead and why leadership is important to you.
Okay. I feel like the way that I lead is just by loving people. I think I'm always led by my core values, and when we in LDR 100 or 200, I can't remember, we did the core value scan, and my core value every single time, it's always love what I'm doing, love the people I'm surrounded by, love the relationships that I've created. And I think that drives and also love the leader that I am too. And so checking in with myself, if I'm ever doing things that aren't in line with my core values, kind of recheck, realign. If I'm ever working with people who I feel I don't love this, I'm losing my passion, my love for this org, for this relationship, for this experience, revisiting that too in that way. I think that passion is the drive of everything. And once,
Yeah. For me, I actually did what is it when Dan has the card?
The core value? I think it's a core value scan. Yeah.
And my top 3 was creativity, love, and faith.
Yeah.
And love, I relate to that, because if you don't love it, then you're not really giving that full energy into it. And it's you can tell, others around you can tell, but when you really love something, it's beyond.
I feel when you see a leader who you can tell that they're passionate, tell that they love it. I hope that's what the people who I engage with, I hope that's what they see when I'm leading a meeting or engaging in a conversation or making a hard decision. Or honestly, leadership is hard and it's tricky, and leadership can sometimes, this is a whole other segment, but leadership can be a lonely place at times when you're making decisions that maybe not everyone is in favor of, or that maybe are different than what past leaders have done in situations previous. But like reevaluating when you're in like kind of those dark spaces or those lonely spaces of, am I doing this right? Like reevaluating my core value. The thing that I want to be driven by the most is love. The decisions that I make, it's so people can feel that love, feel that passion, feel the same way that I do about the organization, the experience, the people, in that way.
Yeah. Every person here has said that like leadership is a very lonely journey. It can be, because you have to make some uncomfortable choices and decisions that maybe everyone else may not, I won't even say agree with, but may not be able to wrap their brain around it yet. You know, I feel like as a leader, you have to have a vision for yourself and display it to those around you and go, hey, like, this is my vision. It might sound like something crazy or outlandish, but like, trust me, like I will lead you into the right direction. I'm not going to lead you wrong. I'm not going to, you know, make you walk into a ditch or something like that. Like, just trust me. And that's how I feel with leadership is, like we said before, we talk about how fun it is, but like there's also a serious dynamic behind it of like, you really got to make some hard choices and you really got to do what no one else is doing, you know, in order to really be a leader.
I think like the beauty of leadership is like what's like shown on the outside and what's shown in programming and like things like leadership in the facilitation series. Like Brandon and I were talking before we even started this whole podcast about how like we're in this almost like bubble. It doesn't even feel like it's the real world when you're planning, when you're engaging with the people around you, when you're setting up your organizations or your things for success. And then you kind of go into the real world and you're kind of like, oh crap. Like people have opinions, people have thoughts, people are talking about me, people are thinking certain things like, but you see, it's easy to look and say like, oh, so-and-so won this award and they got this and they're a great leader and this and that. But the reality is like, sometimes it's hard. And there's times when you go to bed at night and you're like, oh my gosh, everyone seems upset, but I just got to keep going. I just got to keep following what I know. And like things always come to fruition how they're supposed to be if you're leading with core values.
Absolutely. Like everything goes connected back to what you value and finding that, right? Connected to your purpose, right? Your mission, or maybe your vision that you have as leader or your organization, which I think you touched upon, Mel, like the ability to lead. I mean, leadership simply defined, you know, there's so many definitions, but leadership's influence, right? At the end of the day, it's your ability to influence others. Hopefully use that in a positive way, right? As we like to talk about. There's so many examples where it's not, unfortunately, throughout history and in current times. But, you know, connecting that to, I think the bit about the loneliness piece, I think sometimes too, it's important to highlight that it's okay to have the aloneness time instead of loneliness, because like sometimes you need to be alone to reflect as a leader, right? On what's important to you, the decisions you've made. And I mean, I'd love to hear maybe from both of you if you feel comfortable sharing, like, has there ever been a time where you've made a decision following your values that has been maybe a more a difficult decision that's affected the people you're leading, but maybe it was the right decision? And how did you kind of navigate that situation, if that makes sense? Are there like any tips or any, I know it depends based on the environment and what's the situation is, but like, was there anything you kind of stood by when you made that difficult choice, and how did it kind of wind up?
I recently, within my like executive board, there was a member who maybe was like, has so many other responsibilities, so many extracurriculars, so many things that she was responsible for, that the organization maybe became like last on her plate, maybe second to last, like maybe amazing individual, but the realization of like, wow, my plate is full and I only have 5% to give to this certain organization. And so sitting down like with individuals, like how you were saying earlier, Brandon, about how like leadership starts like with yourself, sitting there and being like, am I making a decision that's right for the individual? I think a lot for me is like sitting with the individual who only had 5% left to give at the end of the day to this organization, sitting there and like reflecting on that, following her lead and kind of having her find that decision of like, yeah, I don't have this right now, and kind of going forward with that. So I remember thinking initially like, yep, her coming in at 5% is taking at the energy level down. I always say, I'm like, we executive boards, leadership positions, professionals on campus, they're all the thermostat. We're not thermometers. We set the tone. We bring the energy, and that's where the leadership team like starts it, and then our followers will kind of hopefully match it instead of like being the energy of the room. And so in this case, this individual just had so much going on that she wasn't able to give that and set that thermostat level high energy, high passion, high love for the organization. So talking kind of how do we move forward from this? How do we still have the rest of executive board be excited while also like figuring out how I can support this individual. So it was a super hard conversation coming towards like, hey, I see you're not putting in what we kind of talked about initially. How can I support you? What can we do to figure this out? Super hard conversation. I had so much anxiety going into it, but eventually like loving the individual, loving the organization, following those steps of like, hey, what does she need from us? She needs less responsibility. So she stepped down from the position, had someone refill, and then she is helping in other ways that she has the capacity to do so. So learning from how we can support other people so they can, same thing, follow their journey, their mission, their core values along with mine. So I think there's a way to do it if you have that relationship and that love and passion for the organization.
Yeah.
That's all said.
Yeah, I like the metaphor you use about like the thermostat.
Yes, I always say that.
That was a good one.
I know. When people come in, whether they're general members, and I'm speaking like from a college organization, so I say like followers or general members of like organizations, like when they walk in like to Beyond Body meetings and they see that eBoard is dancing and smiling and engaging in conversation, how was that exam? How was that test? How was that speech? Are you doing this? Are you achieving your goals? The same thing sparks and energizes with general members, turning to each other. It's so important for also executive boards to talk to general members. How are you? How is this? Remembering those tiny things about the people that you interact with, even though they're not an executive board, they're still just as important, just as valued. And like that love for the organization should like ooze out of the individuals that are leading it. So it's like contagious. It's a thermostat.
Yeah.
We set the tone. We're up here so that everyone can be up here.
Exactly. No, I like that. I really do. Now, for me, I don't feel like I've actually had to make a hard decision for someone else, but maybe a personal decision for myself that may have affected a group of people per se. So like I was in a fraternity at one point and I was the historian. And you know me, like I like taking pictures, videos. Mm-hmm. I'm currently doing that right now. And in my head, I'm like, I want to be there at every single event and like snap the photos of like all the guys having fun and like all that. But like I'm also working for like CM Life. I'm working for the Leadership Institute. I'm also starting a business with my friend. And it's like I had too much on my plate in all these roles. And I'm like, well, I don't want to just leave because they may depend on me. Maybe there might be a memory that was never captured because I wasn't there. So there was that pressure on me feeling like I had to be at every single Greek event. And I just had to reach out to my president and say, hey, like I really like being involved in Greek life, but it's a lot and it's too much for me. And like maybe someone else can be a historian and take the pictures and whatnot. And I probably had to step away. And we talked about it and I eventually stepped away. And it was a hard decision because I didn't want to let others down.
Right.
But at the same time, I had to put myself first.
Yeah.
Because kind of going back to what you were saying, I'm giving 25% to all of these things and not really giving my all. And I also eventually left CM Life as well because I'm like, I'm trying to do my best for that and trying to do my best for all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I don't want others to depend on me so much to the point where I just back down and then like everything comes crumbling down. So let me like stop this now and tell all these people like, hey, like I got to let y'all know ahead of time that I can't give it my all. So I'm going to back away before you guys get too dependent on me. And then it really crumbles down, So that's kind of to answer your question is I never really had to put someone in a position, but I myself had to leave in a position. So
I think also on that same note, Mello, like when you said like you knew when it was time to step down, something that kind of popped into my mind was like you also as a leader have to know when it's time to make noise and get loud and advocate for what you want and what is right and what aligns with those core values. So within your position in the fraternity, knowing that you had to be there, maybe making noise and being like, this is too much for one person. How can I still be involved in this organization? I know I'm the director of a nonprofit, director of programming for at-risk students in Grand Rapids. And there was a student in a family who had a need. They actually escaped a domestic violence situation. So they're essentially homeless, living in a car. And so in an attempt to get them daycare and like employment and housing, there was some pushback from my supervisors saying like, no, not acting as a go-between and different things like that. And that kind of sparked some red flags. Some like, now it's time, instead of stepping down, it's time to make noise. It's time to get louder. It's time to advocate, to be more, and send those hard emails, advocate for those kiddos, advocate for the programming, advocate for my core values, which is love this family, love these kiddos that need someone to push for them and advocate for them. Find them the childcare that they can't afford at this time. Figure out ways to move around to make sure that these kiddos are taken care of because it aligns with my core values. And whether or not within your fraternity you were like, I'm sure it was, I know it was, right? Because we have a friendship outside of this. So I know it was time for you to like step down, but understanding kind of the balance of like, okay, this is all on my plate, or let's make some noise. Let's change things up. Let's change how things have been going on for so long so that I myself can do this and make it work for me and change what needs to be changed so that people are taken care of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for answering that too. And I think like you both mentioned it so well, is like it comes down to self-awareness. So we talk about that all the time, but like knowing when you hit your limits. And I think a big piece too that I think some folks might benefit from hearing is like you can't be a leader in every little aspect of your life. It's not possible, right? Like I hate to say, you can be a leader, right? You can still have your same character, which I hope you do, right? You're the same person, whether people are watching or not, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like you just don't have the ability to lead in every little aspect because one, if you're focused on leading other people, which you should be as a leader, right? Working with people, you can only pour so much of yourself into other folks, right? That bit of self-care, right? Knowing when it's been too much, and also being comfortable taking a step back and sometimes being, a team member, right, or a follower, as we say in the leadership educational piece, right? But I don't really like that term as much, but a team member, you know what I mean? And so like, but recognizing that, I think one is also a journey itself. And I think we talked about this before too on the show, but like in college, right, I think a big piece early on is to experiment, right? Do a lot of different things to find those core passions that you have and align with your core values. But once you get to that point, then you have to reevaluate and invest time. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I've done it myself, right? Because you've had all these involvements or you've had these good times, right? These good memories, but you have to pick and choose. And that's just kind of how it is, right? But hopefully throughout that time, you're able to find what you're more passionate about to do that work. And I think both of you, from what you've shared, like both of you, like you even mentioned being burnt out in high school and stuff. Like, I don't think a lot of people recognize that at a younger age, or because it's, I think, again, like in our bubble, we see it's normal getting involved. It's normal to be in all these organizations, but again, prioritizing that self-care, but also so you can bring the most to what you're passionate about.
It's completely impossible. You can never lead people if you're pouring from an empty cup. Like you can't give anything away. You can't be the best leader if you're not taking time and taking care of yourself. And also on that same note, Brandon, like you tied it all together because it's like knowing yourself, knowing who is Marlee, who is Mello, who is Brandon, what do they need from me? Like I am also leading myself with my core values. So stepping back and understanding, I know my biggest downfall, I'm a huge control freak. I love to be in control. I love to be in the know. I want to be like, okay, what's going on here and what's going on there? And a member of one of my organizations looked at me and was like, Marlee, girl. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you, because I know that about me, but it's harder for me to identify when I'm experiencing that over-controlling part, and I need someone to be able to be like, Marlee, step back. And I'm like, thank you. Apologize. I trust you. And it's not a lack of trust. It's just like, I'm just so eager. I just love it, and I want to be involved. And that's what stretches myself too thin. And just sometimes leadership is hands-off. It's watching people. It's encouraging people. And like, the ways that I refill myself, I think a lot of people are similar who come on this show and engage with each other, but the way that I refill my cup is leadership. So I'm very lucky to be a part of organizations that prioritize that self-care and saying no, and also get refilled by the joy that comes from those organizations.
So question number 3 is, what advice would you give to the viewers watching? Like what's that key thing you just want people to take away from this?
I think that if anyone is watching this, and if I have influence on anyone, I would say you are one mentor away from the best experience ever, from your next best thing. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Mello, like, and the relationship. I'm serious, but the relationship that we have outside of like all this LI stuff. And I wouldn't even have met Mello if it wasn't for Allie Richards, who has encouraged me in this way. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dan Gakin, who sat with me in his office and was like, this is what I want you to do. You're great here. Let's work on your resume. Sarah Gum is a huge mentor of mine. Like, you're one relationship, one person away from reaching the next best thing. There's something so beautiful about knowing that you will never have mastered anything. I will never be the best at anything. There's always going to be someone who knows something more, something from a different perspective, and I want to know them. I want to have a relationship with them. I want them to push me to the next level. And once I reach that next level, then there's someone who knows more there than I do. And leadership is knowing that I will never be the best, but there's someone who is, and let me find them, let me advance, let me interact with those people around me and figure out how I can get there. Yeah. And like, I think CMU does such a great job of mentorship and offering those outlets. But I think also like leadership and mentorship is in the halls of ANSPA with your professor that teaches Soch 100, right? And like those tiny little things that like every single interaction within a day that you have has the power to be an influential interaction.
I think about it like people used to call me insane for talking about this, but the butterfly effect. Yeah. Like every single thing you do is the butterfly effect. Like first I went to leadership safari, and I was like, all right, this is cool. I was way older than everyone, but I wanted to go anyways. Yes. And then they sent me the email about going to Leadership Spark. Went to Leadership Spark, met Allie a little bit more. Then Allie was like, come to Leadership. Went to Leadership, met Brandon, and then so it's just like,
and then we went together.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just
and
like
now we're going to Westcote High School.
Yeah, exactly. and may eventually, how do I word this? Influence, some children there and who may want to become leaders themselves when they get into high school or wait, they're already in high school, right?
Some of them.
I don't know.
Yeah. But like when they get off to college and get off into the real world, so to speak, and we never know like what influence we'll have on them. They might send us out an email 20 years later, like, hey,
that would be like the most beautiful thing ever.
So yes, I agree with you. Like you're one person away, for
from
sure,
achieving that big thing.
Yeah.
I'm super secret. You can put it in there if you want. But I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. Ooh. And so Dan, I sat with him my freshman year, and I was like, Dan, I walked in and I sat down, and I don't even think he knew like my last name. He just saw like the Remen 1 MB email coming in. And I was like, I want to meet with you and I want to write a book. And I knew that he was a great mentor and I wanted to do this. And so I took that maybe uncomfortable step of like, holy crap, like Dan is like really high up and I'm just a freshman. But I went in there and I sat down and like it's happening because of the encouragement of taking the step of meeting that next person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. Like from freshman till now, thinking about how much I have changed is incredible.
But think about like exactly to that point, like how much growth have you had? But that's through being intentional with that, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the misconception. I was reading this the other day. It's not my thought, right? It's in a book. But I want to repeat it because it's so cool or so impactful. It's like a lot of the time we show up to things, whether that's class or an event, and we just expect to grow, right? That's not the case, right? We might learn a little bit, but we have to be intentional with that. Like, how do I want to grow? What can I work on? And like, speaking of that, like finding that person you're going out there, which I know sounds intimidating. I think like even mentioned like being a little bit intimidated. Like I know that was me as well. Like I'm really introverted, right? Again, we're doing this podcast, so it might not seem like it, but like, and I've grown too through that, right? But like pushing yourself a little bit because you are really one, like you said, that was perfect. One person away or a few people away. Like, I have kind of a story too. Like, finding a mentor that believed in me, that I didn't see myself as leader, helped me through those opportunities and reassured me in that time the way I maybe needed that. And everything changed for me, right? And so, again, too, and I think Mel even made the point, like, we don't also even know sometimes when we've been impacted or when we've impacted others. And I think sometimes we could do a little bit more. and a general speaking of like thanking our mentors, right? If we have the chance to, right? If they're still around or if they're accessible, and just
even like a thank
small
you
moments.
card.
Yeah,
like
something small.
so small.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the step.
For
I also
sure.
think when I came to school in the fall, I reached out to a CMU staff and asked to mentor, went to a first meeting, and then was so excited about it, asked them to mentor me, and was completely ghosted. Like after 3 follow-up emails, a phone call, no response. And so I was like super upset and super like, he doesn't think my vision is right. It's never going to come to life. This is not a great opportunity for me. I'm not here for the right reasons and things like that. And again, there's people in my path and in my experience who have been like, this is not the right thing for you. I don't want to be close with you. I want this to be like, or whatever it is. There's always going to be someone that's like, I don't see it. I don't want to be a part of it. And it's such like looking in hindsight, looking at freshman Marlee, who was sending that 30 email begging to meet with this mentor for the second time. Like, I wish I could go back and tell her, like, just continue on, find another, like take that next step, take that next leap of faith. I'm one step away. And then I found Dan, and then it was great. Yeah. And so knowing that when things get harder, maybe when there's setbacks, it's opportunity, right? Not getting that response email in hopes that like this was gonna be my mentor and I was gonna be famous and I was gonna be a #1 book selling whatever after the second meeting, and never having the opportunity or chance to meet with him for a second time was an opportunity to then move to the next, to communicate with other people. And now I'm on that path to success, and it's always going to happen, right? As when I'm graduated from the university and when I'm continuing in my leadership, like there's going to be things and there's going to be times when people disagree or relationships change or you lose maybe some friends. But knowing that the decisions that I've made, the interactions that I've had with that mentor who ghosted me, right? Like it was all in good with my core values, with my core value of love and continuing on and wanting to move that mission forward. So understanding that if there's setback, it's all for the purpose, and just continuing keeping that core value at the center of everything that I do and the way that I move through.
There's going to be setbacks, right? Especially when you're a leader, when you're doing anything in life. And it's like, how do you, and I feel like from a societal standpoint for years, we've looked at as failure as bad, right? Failure isn't fun, right, necessarily, but it's not necessarily bad, right? It's because you said it perfectly. New opportunities come from that. But it's all about your mindset when you're in that moment. Like, I think we've all had an opportunity, and I'm sure the viewers as well, is like maybe you worked on something you're super proud of, or you did a lot of great work, and maybe it's not received well, or maybe it's kind of get shut down or an idea. But it's what do you do in those moments, right? Like, and I heard this, again, not my thing, this is out there, but I was reading, as you can tell, I read a lot of books, right?
Yes,
but,
go Brandon.
It was like talking about like the idea like leaders won't necessarily judge by their failure, they'll be judged by how they rebound, right? Or how they return. Essentially.
Wow.
I think I said that kind of wrong, but around that lines, right? Like, and so like it's about how you recover. That's the word, recover. Like how you recover and how you change, right?
Yeah.
Making sure you maybe don't make that same mistake again, because we all make mistakes, right? I mean, even the greatest leaders make mistakes all day long, right? It's just how you kind of bounce back. And that's difficult, right? That's a lot easier said than done, but it's hard to listen to the noise and not listen to the noise at the same time, especially when you're learning, and especially when it's a mentor, because guess what, maybe your mentor doesn't have everything figured out either, and that's finding also different mentors in different areas of your life. I think is important too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like I take things for me like as a personal individual leader, I take things like so personally. I'm like, okay, I didn't get this email response back, or this fell through, or this relationship is no longer a relationship, or this friendship has changed, and things like that. But understanding that that can be true, like relationships and mentorships and things don't work out, that's true, but I'm still a good leader, and I can still, those two things can exist at the same time, having failures and still being a great leader. Those things interconnect, they're related, and moving forward knowing that. What?
No, I like that you said that, because I don't know if I said this in our previous podcast, but I said failing is doing is creating, and creating is succeeding. No matter what, the more you fail, the more you succeed, because you're trying. You know, you're doing, you're creating.
You're one more step, right?
One more step, exactly. So that's how I see failure. And I had to tell myself that because I take things personal, like to the core. Like
yes, Mello.
like when you said control freak, I was like, yo, I haven't heard that. Like that's like a 2000s word. Like I have never heard that. Like I've heard it before, but I didn't realize like, wait a minute, like I'm kind of like that. Like I want things to be tip top perfect. If it's not, like I'm mad.
Yeah.
Like I'm hog smash.
Do you remember at Safari when you came up to me and you were like, Marlee, I just messed up the Safari video. I just messed up one thing. And I looked at it. I go, Mello, what?
And no one noticed
talking
it.
About?
No one noticed it.
You're your own worst enemy.
Yeah, you're your worst critic for sure. Yeah. But no, it kind of just goes back to like, all right, move on, make another Safari video and another one and another one and a LAS and a D video and a this and a that and a that. And then, you know, just keep making stuff and keep doing stuff and keep succeeding and keep being a leader. And you're not always going to be perfect, you know, as a leader. I think that's how you relate to leaders too, because a lot of times we see leaders as this perfect person, you know, but like we make mistakes too, you know, and when you are vulnerable enough to allow people to know that to an extent, it kind of makes people listen to you a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I think apologizing and making like no leader is perfect, and if someone wants to get up there and say that they're perfect, then watermelon sugar bye. Like apologizing and like having the individuals understand that like the leader is not perfect makes them more relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. The beast too about like perfection, like that's a game killer, right? Like I've struggled with that too. I think so many people struggle with that. It's like, and like you said, we're our own worst critic. But again, not my original idea. Heard this elsewhere too, but it was like the idea of like we have to treat ourselves better, right? Like the way sometimes we treat ourselves is horrible to our own self, right? We get so down on ourselves for making a mistake. It's like, hopefully you wouldn't want to treat someone else that way, but why are you doing that to yourself, right? It's the idea of like you can't be kind to others if you're not kind to yourself first, or like love, you know, or whatever the word you want to use in that.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly, right? It all ties in together. But it's like, and I know it's, again, all this is sometimes a lot easier said than done, but that's why it takes that intentionality, right? To spend time, that reflective work, again, knowing where you stand, where your growth areas and strengths lie as well. But yeah, if we could create some type of programming around like the idea of fighting against that perfectionist mindset, especially because I think so many young leaders, and again, maybe even older leaders as well, struggle with that, right? Because again, normally, you know, you're involved, you have a lot of things on your plate, you want things to go well, and you're also doing, hopefully, you're pouring into other people as well, right? Yeah. And so, like, but again, a lot of time we get hard on ourselves, and I think that also kind of leads to that burnout mentality, right? Or like when you stretch yourself too thin,
right,
and you don't treat yourself as kind as you probably should. And so, like, I wonder how we could do that, infuse that to help develop folks while they're on their leadership journey.
I would love to add some sort of programming along those same lines of how to, like, self-discovery is the most powerful tool. Understanding yourself, what you need, is understanding your strengths, and even understanding your weaknesses more than your strengths is an incredible tool for like knowledge. And again, the next step, like every single discovery you make on yourself is like the opportunity, like you were saying, Mel, about like creating the next step, adding that into the programming of like a retreat on like self-discovery. But I guess maybe that's what leadership is for.
Yeah, in a way, I think there is like that big piece of like
never
that emotional intelligence. But like, I think we could do that more, right? And it doesn't have to be in a 4-day conference style kind of thing, right? Because that's something you're gonna do every single day. How can we give you those skills? And again, that's gonna look different from person to person. But how you do that on that day-to-day basis, so over time you start to see those things connect and grow, right? To face that change. But I don't know, interesting stuff. Mel, you got anything to add?
I also want to know where that even comes from. Like you know what I mean? Where did
perfection?
Yeah,
the drive for perfection.
Yeah. Or like, could it be like something to do with your childhood and like you know, maybe like how you were disciplined or whatever, or like, let me not make a mistake because maybe my mom or dad or my guardian made such and such. I don't know.
Right.
But maybe if people can tap into what it is that made them that way, then like they can break that habit, you know, break that habit.
Yeah.
It could be DNA. I mean, all that maybe combined,
yeah.
Right? Like psychological things, how you've been raised, what have you experienced, like, because people are different. Sometimes I wish I could sometimes sit back a little bit more and be like, you know, maybe I can relax a little bit on this thing. it's not as deep as we make it to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? But also it's a pro too in certain areas as well, right? Because maybe you are a little bit more focused on the details.
I
and
was just
attention.
about
so
to
it's like
say,
balance,
I
right?
say
like,
that it's like,
Yeah.
like a perfectionist is like, I always think about like women are always like, oh, you're too controlling. Oh, it doesn't have to be perfect. I like, just relax. And that frustrates me because I know I'm a perfectionist, but that's the drive of why the work is so good, right?
Yeah.
That's why things come out to be how they are. That's why my leadership is the way it is. I think perfection to the point of where you're pushing yourself when you become unhealthy, that's when it becomes unhealthy. But I think perfection of like pushing people and maneuvering things and being curious, is this the right way to do it? Is this the most inclusive way to do this? Is this equitable? Is this inclusive to everyone that I'm leading with? Thinking in those ways, making it perfect in those aspects is a good thing.
Yeah.
But like the small stuff more that kind of like kills your energy and your passion is what you got to be careful of.
Right.
Balance.
It all comes, balance. Everything's balanced out, right? Like
Balance,
all in good
balance.
when you need it, when you use it, and again, that just comes down to knowing yourself. This is all connecting. I love it.
Yeah.
Mello, Marlee, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for again being on the show. A lot of great tips and advice around leadership were shared today. Knowledge nuggets, as we like to call them. Marlee, thank you for sharing your journey. Again, I think people are going to really resonate with pieces of that, hopefully, and some key takeaways. Yeah, of course. It's a great time. So if you want to share your leadership journey and story like Marlee has, you can fill out a description down below. We have a form there to kind of get some information from you, and we'll reach out and let you know about that. But yeah, it's been a great time. And
Click
we'll
the link in the Instagram bio.
Yeah, link in the Instagram bio. You can watch this full thing. It'll be on different platforms. Follow the LI on Instagram. Again, social media crew right here. Shameless plug always.
Fire up chips always.
Fire up chips always. We're getting it. We do as well, right? That's the tagline.
Yes.
Leadership is central. Yeah, there you go. 100%. So again, thanks for tuning in to Leadership in 20. We'll see you next time. For now, keep leading the way. Peace out.
Bye.